Welcome, everyone, to the Empath podcast series. I'm your host, Steph Naval, and today we'll be talking about how to build stronger familial relationships. So, our next guest has been a guest here before on the show, but I would just still like to introduce him again for those who just newly tuned in to our show. He is a psychotherapist at Emmaus Center in the Ateneo and at Magis Creative Spaces in Alabang. In 2017, he started a mental health advocacy called Psych of Path, a social media cause which aims to develop mental health awareness in the Philippines by debunking myths and misconceptions and educating people through talks, trainings, and workshops. So he specializes in depression, anxiety, and suicide prevention and intervention, and resilience building through acceptance and commitment therapy. So without further ado, I would like to introduce and welcome Patrick Gamo.
Hi, thanks for having me
Yay!
back.
Yes, of course. Thank you again for coming to the show. It was such a delight to have you last time. So, the question we have for you today in relation to how to build stronger familiar relationships. So, from your experience and from your expertise, knowing that we come from the Filipino society and we are very much tight knit and to the point that we are very close to our cousins of cousins, our titos and titas, and usually the connection with people is, oh, if you know this person, are you related to this, if they have
Yeah,
similar last names.
yeah,
So we would love to hear your insight on how we as Filipinos, or even as a father yourself,
yeah,
are able to build these familial bonds and relationships.
yeah. We live in a highly globalized society, and our culture is highly influenced by, Americans and the Westerners, and, the premium or the value that families have now, I think is a lot more important given that it's we're very individualized now, or we tend to do things by ourselves now. But the truth is, your family connections or your family familial relationships are very very important, not just from, not just as an adult, but all throughout your entire life. There are lots of psychological theories and lots of psychological studies also that have been done that reinforce or that affirm the benefit of having good or strong familial ties all throughout a person's lifetime, from how securely you grow up and how confident you are as a person, to how you manage your romantic relationships, how you parent, and how much you connect with your bigger community. And all that stems from a strong familial tie or a strong familial relationship. So, that this is coming from, or me mentioning this is coming from the thinking that, one, there might be people listening in today thinking that, why should I? I'm fine by myself. I know how to deal with life or to take care of myself. I don't need my family. But honestly, yeah, of course, you can do things by yourself. The individual is very strong, but you do benefit a lot more from having, uh, stronger familial connections or ties with your family, and the benefits are widespread, from just not just from, reliance or being able to do things, but also in terms of how you are able to pass on the kind of personality or the kind of characteristics or behaviors to the next generations, whether you decide to have kids or not. The first thing that comes to mind when you think about the way, or one of the ways to best develop your relationships with your family is, I think, the top of mind is really just to know them. And one of the aspects, or one of the best things to know about them, is how they receive or interpret or give love. So back in the early 90s, there was this author, Gary Chapman, who posited or wrote the book The Five Different Love Languages. And what it is that, or what he was saying is that, not everybody receives love or expresses love exactly the same way, but there are five major themes, I guess, of how people receive and express love. So the five are: acts of service, then there is gifts, there's physical intimacy, there's quality
Quality
time,
time,
and
yes.
then there's words of affirmation. So basically, or the simplest way to explain each one is when you are an acts of service kind of person, um, you receive love or you feel the most loved when people do things for you on what or well or when they help you out with certain tasks. If you're a gift person, then you receive love or you feel love more when people give you things that you like or give you material things that you like, but that doesn't necessarily make you a materialistic person. If you're a quality time person, that means that you prefer to really just engage and be with the person and spend time with them regardless of whatever that activity is, as long as it's with that someone you feel considered or you feel that you're loved through that. If you're on a words of affirmation kind of person, you feel most loved or considered when people compliment you or they tell you things about or they give you feedback or affirmation about the way you've done things or how you are as a person. And the last one is, what's the last one? Physical intimacy. So you feel most loved when you are touched, whether it's through holding hands or your hair is brushed or you're kissed or you're hugged, all sorts of like physical connection, which I
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge is something that's kind of hard to come by for a lot of different people. Not for me though, because I live with my wife. So yeah, right.
Great,
Um
great for you, Pat.
I know. I'm so sorry. Don't at me. Don't hate me. By the way, also, the way you receive love language, the way you receive love might not necessarily be the way that you express love.
Ooh.
So there's a test that you can take online if you just type in Google, I guess, love language test. It will show you what your top three love language expressions are, and also what it is that you feel that you express what that you receive most. So sometimes for me, for example, I'm very much a quality time person. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
both express and receive love. But also at the same time, I also like giving gifts. I don't necessarily like getting or receiving gifts, but I like being able to
Mm-hmm.
give them, especially when I'm particularly thoughtful of a person. Parang, oh, I remember this person likes this or has been thinking about this. I get it for them. But I
Mm-hmm.
might not necessarily feel like, okay, thanks for giving me this. I don't necessarily like it. Or I not naman not like it. That's so mean. Um, I might not necessarily be receptive to it as much as if you were to spend time with me, for example.
Yes,
So
understand.
that's something to consider. So it's helpful to know with regard to like building and developing better familiar relationships. It's good to know what each of the people in your family are receptive to the most and how they express it. Practical
Oh,
example is parang,
interesting.
yeah, if you think about it, sometimes if you're a quality time person but your dad's more of like a gifts person, he might not he might just feel annoyed if you keep hanging around, but he might be
Mm.
receptive to like, oh dad, I remember you broke your tool and here's a new hammer, something like that, diba?
Mm-hmm.
Or for example, if your dad's not if you're a quality time person but your dad's not like I've mentioned, your dad's not a quality time person, you might feel like he doesn't love you enough if he doesn't spend as much time with you. But if you realize or if you understand that he's a acts of service kind of person, you can tell that he loves you because he does these things for you, and so on and so forth. So it's not even just about having knowledge of that language, but also being able to interpret that or being able to understand or translate that. If you going along with the whole language metaphor, translating that to you and being receptive to that also for yourself. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very insightful. I think a lot of people can benefit with that shift of mindset. For next question would be the can you talk further about how our family values play into it? And
right.
other than, let's say, love languages, can you
Yeah.
discuss more, especially when Filipinos have a specific and very distinct type of family values?
From the previous episode, I was talking a lot about how ACT or acceptance and commitment therapy centers a lot on values guided action, about knowing or having that picture or that clarity on what is ideal to you or what it means to make your life more meaningful and fulfilling. Well, sometimes in families or in communities and groups or in organizations, for example, you have shared values. So So it's those things that really tie you together. It's that thing that kind of gets you to center on or focus on as a unit, and it gets you moving together rather than separately. So, for example, the principles or the values that your parents might teach you might act as your entire family's value or principles
Mm,
also.
mm-hmm.
For example, the value of, for me in my family, it's the value of excellence. Na it was my lolo, I think, who said throughout his lifetime, before he died, that anything worth doing is worth doing well. And so there's this
Wow.
whole thing or this whole principle in my family to, to do stuff with excellence. So that's something that has always been a maybe a principle that ties us together. Na whenever my sisters, for example, need encouragement, we always kind of come back to na parang, remember, this is worth doing. So, you keep going at it. Or
Mm.
whenever we feel particularly down about something, that's also something that we kind of tie back to. But of course,
Wow.
it's not just about performance, right? There's also values around quality time. For me or for my mom, for the most part, because all of her kids are um adults now, and for we do spend a lot of time or more time outside the house. Well, none of
Mm-hmm.
us really live there anymore except for my baby sister, or sorry, not baby sister, sorry, she's not
How
here.
many are you guys?
We're three,
Oh.
older sister, and then there's me, and then there's my younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom, when I started working, or when my baby when my younger sister started working, made it a rule that no matter how much we work, no matter how much we um how many activities or how many things we have going on for us, we always make it a point to have dinner together at home every night.
Oh, my mom's like that also.
Yeah, diba? And
Yes.
then but then also I mean I moved out because I got married. And so the whole quality time thing is now about Sunday. So we always keep our Sundays sacred. Na
Mm-hmm.
don't make it too busy that you can't spend time with your family anymore. I'm very active at church kasi. So,
Mm-hmm.
that was a big deal for us earlier on. But then I learned how to balance that, because again, that's how we express our love to each other. It's quality time. That's our value. And so
Yeah.
again, just as a major influence, that's something that I've taken with me from my family of origin, and
Mm-hmm.
am making sure that it's something that is valued here in my home now. Na parang no matter how busy I get with clients, and no matter how busy my wife gets with her clients also, or with her seminars, or with her coaching sessions, we always make a time. We always make sure that all of our meals are together. Now we're not busy. Not we're not too busy to be able to sit down together and eat together, because we also want to set that example for our child, for Cassie. Na
Oh, yes.
um we're not busy. We're not too busy that we can't spend time with her.
Yeah.
Because that's what kids needs to. Well, that's what kids need to.
That's true. I remember before, even as a kid, that's
Mm-mm.
something that my mom wanted to enforce. So every single day, my dad made sure, well, every single night, more or less, my dad made
Yeah.
sure that he'd make it always for dinner. So,
Yeah.
and it was actually, well, for me as a kid, that's what I observed. And okay, like you kind of take it for granted as a kid. But
Yeah.
now, when everyone has busy schedules, when everyone, let's say for me, when some of my sisters moved out to the condo, or we're in our separate ways. Never have I realized it was so important that we all sat down together to just, especially when we were a big family, so
Yeah.
around seven, and
Yeah.
then plus
Wow.
my Lola, she comes also. So it's even harder to have a Polish family, and it's nice that you also talked about how about excellence in your family, because for my family, not necessarily excellence, but it's to, as cheesy as it sounds, it's to be just a good person.
Yeah.
Like whatever decision you make, your life choices, the goal that you want to do in life. One of the reasons why, let's say, I wanted to do initiatives like empath, for example.
Yeah.
And also, I remember my dad saying growing up, Steph, I don't really mind or care like what you turn out. You could be the most wealthiest person in the world, or even the simplest job. As long as you're a good person, I'm ultimately, without a doubt, still proud of you as a dad.
Oh,
And oh, so that's something that I stick by to my with me, especially because it's my lolo who imparted to be a good person. It was actually my great grandmother who was very wanted to instill that value. So it comes with different generations, all the
yeah.
way up to my great grandmother. So she had 12 kids, and yes,
Whoa.
as much as possible, she wanted to impart that you have to be a good person, you make good life choices, you think about others, you do your best, and it trickled down. So yes, and you're very right, it can come from generation.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. I actually only realized it now. So thank you, Pat. Wow, this is actually a counseling session
Yes,
already.
exactly.
Realizing
Yeah.
things. So okay, so we have certain family values, and then also we talked about love languages. Do you have any advice or tips other than the love languages and finding out your values for people who are struggling with family relationships? Let's say um it could be difficulty with siblings, and maybe
Yeah.
those that are a bit older already, so
Yeah.
some feel like it's difficult to already remedy the situation.
Yeah. Um, I guess the saying goes like, no family is perfect. No brother, no sister, no uncle, no aunt, no mother, no father is perfect. And um, it's okay. One, the first thing maybe is that you should always make sure that you're taking care of yourself. No matter or no amount of family love should get in the way of you getting what you need to, at the very least, like bare minimum to survive. But also should take no amount of family love should get in the way of you loving yourself. So that's always the most important thing. The second thing is it's always, and this is maybe like another thing with values, but given that no family is perfect and that everybody makes mistakes, is that what helps the most in those situations is the commitment to each other, maybe. And that's kind of stemming from something I said also of the previous episode, na it's always, if you all share that commitment to each other and to yourselves to come together, it makes it a lot easier to forgive. And so maybe that's also the necessary component, is the willingness to forgive each other and to forgive yourselves and to move forward together. um there's a lot more to say about that. Of course, can't confine it into one episode. Maybe we'll do like a part two. Oh, I don't know.
Yes.
But like, I mean, there are a lot more family situations that are complex. But yun nga, parang determining whether or not everybody is on the same page with regard to what the family is about. If you all have it in your minds to really commit to each other and to move forward to be better, then it's about doing what it takes to get there, whether it's forgiveness or having a conversation or a confrontation about it, or an intervention with a family member. So yeah, I guess that's the whole thing. Is it's still very act centric, na it's about knowing what your values are and committing to doing what it takes to pursue that value together. So
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. So maybe what you're saying also is a nice approach would be to, I guess, sit down and be able to reestablish what are your values as a family and
Yeah.
really to air it out. Because
Yeah.
I think perhaps a mistake that some people do, there's this expectation that, okay, just do, but it was never really established.
Yeah.
They sit down, they discuss, these are our values as a family. I personally
Yeah.
really want to commit to it, but I also need your commitment to
Yeah.
be able to work on this relationship together.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Pat. I think that's all that the time that we have now. That was
Sure.
another very insightful episode. So, do you have any other shout outs again that you'd like to close the episode? Perhaps with your
No,
wife also.
yeah, of course. No, as always, it's a family thing, it's a relationship thing. And of course, I always put my family first. So, yes, follow my wife's page on Facebook. It's facebook.com/financial coach chai. One word, financial coach chai, as in CHAI, the T. but she's not a tea.
The
She's
chai
my wife.
latte tea.
Yeah, chai latte tea. Yun. Also, if you want to message me or if you have any questions, like further inquiries, shout out. Of course, like reach out to Empath, and you can also reach out to me. So it's facebook.com/psych of Pat.
Hey there, it's Steph Naval. If you're interested on leveling up your mental health and overall well-being, please follow our podcast to get free psychoeducational content. See you again in the next episode, and let's continue to advocate mental health care access for all.